My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Risk Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticrisk.com, and our special guest tonight is cage singer Sean Peck, and actually Sean has another band, Death Dealer. Welcome to the show today, Sean, and you were sharing with me that actually you were a big fan of the Tony Martin era Black Sabbath, and we were going to talk to you today about their album, The Headless Cross. So let's get right into it. Why don't you share with us how you actually got into Black Sabbath initially?
I was a bit of a late bloomer to Black Sabbath, really. I mean, I got into metal in like 83-ish.
Okay.
Kind of late. So I started with, Defenders of the Faith, Screaming for Vengeance, and then getting into Iron Maiden and the Scorpions and Ozzy. And never really went. I mean, I had the first Black Sabbath, Paranoid tape, so I loved that one. But I never really went through the rest of their history. And then moving to California from Alaska, where I was, I got the Eternal Idol album. And I loved that record, and I love Tony Martin's voice. And so, to me, that whole era,
before,
the era before, is really unexplored for me. I mean, I knew the big songs, but I never really, went back and listened to all those albums. Probably like I should have. So, to me, the Eternal Idol, Headless Cross, and Tear albums, they were more along the 80s heavy metal vibe. That I really liked versus the other the older Black Sabbath stuff. And
interesting.
And Headless Cross, I mean, this, even though it's only really got kind of 7 tracks, the Gates of Hell is just kind of an intro. Is a frickin' masterpiece. I mean, there is not one weak song on the album, and Tony Martin just sounds amazing on it. So I go for the songwriting, and those, I'll take Nightwing and Devil and Daughter and Headless Cross as some of Black Sabbath's greatest. I mean, those are in my top 5 all-time Black Sabbath songs.
Yeah, and then actually the song "When Death Calls," I was reading, that features solo by Brian May of Queen. I don't know if many people are aware of that.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I got that off of Wikipedia. Now, interestingly enough, this is the 14th Black Sabbath album at the time, and right before this album was released, I guess. The band was dropped by Warner Brothers, which they had been with for 18 years, and all of a sudden they had no label. They found this little independent label. If you can imagine Black Sabbath being on an independent label called IRS, but the head of that label kind of told Tony Allen, "Hey, listen, I'm a fan of what you do, so if you just continue to kind of do what you do, we're willing to sign you." And they signed them with kind of that kind of agreement. And it's interesting, like you say, because of all the Tony Martin era albums, it's this one, I think, and the Eternal Idol that get the most rave reviews.
Well, I mean, for good reason. I played the frickin' Eternal Idol album just over and over and over. Glory Ride, The Shining. I mean, so many good tracks on that one. And like I said, Tony Martin's voice on that thing is just frickin'. He's got, that great tone, and I've never seen him perform live, but it was, I do lots of interviews, and they always ask me, okay, well, what's your favorite Black Sabbath? And I go, freaking Headless Cross. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah. And, that, they go on tour. I mean, I would love it if someone would perform some of that material live instead of just doing all of the usual suspects, because it's the most, again, I say it's kind of more, traditional heavy metal, a lot of the compositions versus, the doomy stuff, and Tony Iommi, who's, could be the all-time riff master of the world.
Oh, yes, no doubt.
Has just got, one killer riff after another, going through that era.
That's why I say, if you listen to any of these albums with Tony Martin, it kind of proves that Tony Iommi, more than anybody, really is Black Sabbath. The fact he's able to go on and have any kind of success just kind of proves that. And what's interesting, knowing that you kind of came into Black Sabbath late in life, as far as because your age and everything, you discovered them later than other people. Now, when I listen to this stuff, I will say, to me, Tony Martin actually has more of a Dio-esque sound to what he does. I mean, he's a lot more similar to what Dio was doing than Ozzy, and that's why I think he works for this stuff, because even though it's not Dio or Ozzy, it's still got that Sabbathy sound, if you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. I just wish there would be some way that, they would go, hey, Tony Iommi would come out next week and go, yeah, we're going to do a tour and we're playing all the stuff from the Tony Martin era. Yeah. It'd be just like, oh, sick,
Yeah.
I would be totally down for that. But there, it had some influence on me on songwriting again. And like I said, that, Nightwing, those vocal melodies through there are just... are freaking incredible. That's like that's probably my top 10 favorite metal songs, period.
And that's cool, because Nightwing, I don't know if Black Sabbath was aware of this or not, but that was a reference to for any Batman and Robin fans, that's what they called Robin in some of the dark Night comics,
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. And also, kind of when Tony Martin came into the Black Sabbath picture, they were having like a real identity crisis, because prior to the Eternal Idol, they'd released the 7 Star, and it was originally going to be like a Tony Iommi solo album, but then the record company at the time was like, well, you know what, we think we could sell more copies. We still call it Black Sabbath. We're going to say Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. And so although that was a solid album, when it came out, a lot of the fans were kind of confused. Wait a minute, is this a Black Sabbath album? Is it Tony Iommi? What is it?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just people, they just never mention this period of Black Sabbath, and to me, it was the best period. So, call me crazy or anything, but I talked to a bunch of people the Headless Cross album. I'm like, what? Dude, you have not heard the Headless Cross album? What is wrong with you? So, it needs to get the due that it deserves.
I will tell you, Sean, that's why I want to talk to you about this, because I agree with you that a lot of this stuff it's very underrated, and I'll tell you who I blame more for that than anybody. I actually have to say the band itself, because Tony Martin, oddly enough, was Tony Iommi's kind of go-to guy when they first got back with Dio in '92 and it didn't work out, and he left as soon as it fell apart with Dio. Oh, hey, Tony Martin, could you come back to the band? But oddly enough, ever since they got back with Dio, and it kind of stuck up until his death, they kind of just... They a lot of those albums aren't even in print, or you can get them only on Amazon and stuff. But a lot of them aren't even in print. The band doesn't play any of that material. When they were still performing, they just kind of act like that time of the band never existed, which is very sad.
Yeah, it's kind of like Judas Priest and the Ripper era. They should bust out One on One or Burn in Hell or something one of these days. That's cool how Maiden, plays stuff from the Blaze era, because
only 2 albums.
There were some great songs.
Yeah.
You look back at those, just switching. You look back at those Blaze records, and some of those songs are really good compared to what we've gotten out of Iron Maiden in the last 10 years. You look back and go, oh man, we were kind of blowing these off as average records, and they were actually, song-wise, they're actually really good compared to the latest stuff they've done.
And funny about Blaze Bayley, before Iron Maiden, he was in that band Woosbane, and people, when they refer to Blaze Bayley now, they totally forget about Woosbane, and they just think of him as being the Iron Maiden singer, Yeah. But it's kind of interesting, like you said, this, and I was reading, really, that when people think of Tony Martin, this is, the go-to album. This is an album everybody kind of says, yeah, that's the one to listen to, if you've never heard any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's just, the video was cool they did for it, and it was real spooky, man. It had, the whole album had a real, evil, dark, horror movie vibe to it, which was really cool. You put some candles on and listen to it in a dark room.
Yeah, and I'll tell you an interesting story I know about. Right shortly before Tony Martin got into the band, Ron Keel, I've read and heard he talked about it online where when Ian Gillan left Black Sabbath, he did that one album. I think it was called Born Again. They were going to get Ron Keel in the band because the guy they were working with at the time, Spencer Proffer, he's a producer. He produced all those Quiet Riot albums, and he was actually, believe it or not, Ron said, trying to turn Black Sabbath into more like a hair metal band, if you can believe that. That's why, like in some of those MTV videos they were doing at that time, they kind of had that look, and it's just kind of oddball to think of Sabbath as a hair metal band, and that's one of the reasons Ron Keel decided to form his own band and didn't end up joining. But it's just kind of funny to think somebody would have that idea of Black Sabbath. Oh, okay, it's the 80s, we're going to mold them into like a hair metal band.
Well, I mean, they didn't have much choice. You had to kind of go with the look. I mean, that's what was going on then. So it was still Black Sabbath, so they put a little fucking hairspray in. And so what,
Yeah. But
you gotta, look at what Ozzy did. Ozzy was in fucking sequin goddamn capes and shit.
Yeah, that's true.
You gotta roll, visually with the times, but the music is metal. The music wasn't any fucking glam band. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I love Ron Keel, but he's cool as fuck. But he should have joined that band.
Yeah, I don't know how much say he had in that or not, but that's kind of an interesting side story of that. And actually online, I think you and me were in one of these like other sites where we have these discussions, and on Facebook, and they were discussing another Black Sabbath. I think it was the final one Tony Martin did, which was called Forbidden, and that's another album that people either love or hate. It's kind of like 50-50. But
I don't know that one.
That was okay, but like this one too, Headless Cross. I know other people that were involved at the time. Cozy Powell, rest in peace. He was a drummer from Rainbow. He was involved with this. Neil Murray, who was a bass player from Whitesnake. So they had a lot of quality players at the time, And I was curious, Sean, being that this is kind of a Black Sabbath you discovered first. When you went back and you heard the stuff with Dio and even Ozzy, what were your thoughts? Because a lot of people, like you said, they hear the classic stuff first. But from a guy that kind of did it backwards, and your time in life when you discovered Black Sabbath, Tony Martin was when you heard those older albums, what were your thoughts?
Well, I was digging into the first, the Paranoid tape, all those songs. So those were all classics. I love that tape. I wore that tape out. That was in '82, I think. So that was like kind of my first started getting hints of being into heavy metal. It was even before I made my big metal switch. Yeah. I was rocking that tape. So I started off at a good spot. But then, going back and listening to all the Dio stuff, now I'm singing frickin' Heaven and Hell, and, going to see the Dio hologram and Children of the Sea, and, I've only listened to the whole Heaven and Hell album probably like twice, so I know that's not very metal to say, but, it's cool, and it's rocking and stuff, but it doesn't come close to Headless Cross for me.
Oh, that's interesting, because, I will say, like, my kind of introduction to Sabbath was like Heaven and Hell. That's kind of when I discovered them, and I'll never forget hearing the song Neon Nights for the very first time. It just and what's amazing finding out that Dio was not actually the original singer. What impressed me the most is when Ozzy did leave Sabbath back in 1979. Everybody thought Sabbath is over, and then not only did they get a guy like Ronnie, who was a great songwriter, and like if you read any of his lyrics, he talks about witches and demons and dragons, and he's such a visionary. You can just imagine kind of the lyrics, what's going on in his head. And, Ronnie really took Sabbath to the next level. And he was just as loved by some of the fans, if not more, than the original singer. And the interesting thing people may fail to realize with Ozzy, all those early Black Sabbath songs, most of them were written by Tony or Geezer. Ozzy was just kind of the singer. And whereas even I dare say Dio was a much better singer than Ozzy, but they just took it to the next level.
Well, yeah, Dio, Ozzy sounded good, back in the day, and I loved Ozzy in concert, man. Back in the heyday, seeing Ozzy in concert, they were just giant events, great songs. And then Dio was my first metal concert.
Wow.
In Anchorage, Alaska, on the last, it was them and Dokken. You know, I was completely into Dokken. I mean, I was just like tooth and nail, which is still an amazing album. You know, so Dokken came on and just like destroyed it, and I only knew a few Dio songs, and it was cool. You know, he had this laser thing going on, but we met these two hot chicks and left halfway through the Dio set and took them to Thunderbird Falls. So like Dio got sacrificed for two cute metal chicks back. So you know, and then I've learned it. You know, I've opened for Dio I think 3 times, and you know, met him, and he was a super cool dude. And the second time we played with him in Mexico, we were walking by his dressing room door, and you know, he's like 50 feet back in his dressing room. Like we're just walking by the door. It's like, "Hey, Cage!" And he yelled at us. And we're like, "What?" And we look in there. It's just him and I think Wendy, just in this giant room. He's like, "Yeah, come in here, man." I'm like, "How the fuck does this guy remember who we are?" And we went back and like, "How you guys do?" You know, so we got to hang with him and talk with him. But just that thing where he like calls us out and like remember who the fuck we were. I was like, wow, that was cool.
That's the one thing I always heard about Ronnie is that he made a point of no matter who he was dealing with, he always to remember people's names or you know where he knew them from, and that was a real thing about him. But you know, Sean, that's a great story. I mean, talking about seeing you know Ronnie James Dio in his prime, you know, back when you were a young lad, before you and a professional musician yourself. You know, just a rock fan at one of these concerts, and then to actually get in a band yourself, and you've opened up for, you know, you're on the stage now. You're out of the audience. You're on the stage. You're opening for a man. That's got to be the ultimate dream come true. You know?
One of them was Cage, Dio, and Iron Maiden. And we walked backstage, and there were 3 dressing rooms. The one on the left was Dio, the middle one was Cage, and the one on the right was Iron Maiden. And I'm just looking at these back. I go, it's never going to get better than this. Like this. We peaked too soon, man. It's all downhill from here. And that was so funny because the 3 dressing rooms had like an adjoining balcony, so we were out on the balcony, and then all of a sudden Iron Maiden's window opens up and Nico McBrain comes out. They're like, "Yeah, come on in here." So it's like it was Cage and Iron Maiden and nobody else in the room for like 20 minutes, and we were just like, you know, no roadies, no groupies, nothing, just the 2 bands hanging out, talking. We were all like kids in candy store, like, "Can we get a picture? We get a picture." I remember taking a picture of this one dude sticking his face in there. I'm like, "Who the fuck is this dude?" It was Yannick Gears, the other guitar player. I'm like, "Who the fuck is this guy? He keeps getting these pictures." I didn't even know. like, oh yeah, it's the 3rd guitar player that we don't fucking need. Yeah,
that's something I want to ask you about. As an Iron Maiden fan, what do you think about them having 3 guitar players? And initially, I think it's basically because you know when Bruce Dickinson came, they didn't want to kick him out of the band, but he's our mate. We'll just keep him. But you know that's kind of a cool thing, I guess, like a band of brothers. But I kind of
stupid. I hate it.
Really? Okay.
Yannick Gears is just. I guess he's toned it down a little bit where he's not as fucking annoying as he was, but his anecdotes, the way they're not anecdotes, but the way antics, I should say, where he fucking ran around stage, it's like, oh god, he was just like ruining the show half the time. But now, you know, he's toned it down and we're a little desensitized to it. But the early Maiden shows with him running around like a little fucking bitch was just, please make it stop.
Well, I mean, even Iron Maiden, I mean, for a guy like that, that's got to be a huge leap because he played with Ian Gillan before, but I don't think even on the same level as Iron Maiden.
No.
Yeah. And you know, it's kind of interesting, you know, talking about this time of Black Sabbath, or, you know, the Headless Cross. Like you said, probably my favorite track that I love. I love the title track. I mean, it just got such a classic kind of Sabbathy sound, the guitar tones, the vibe, and it's kind of it's interesting because, like you said, Black Sabbath this time they were all over MTV, which people wouldn't think of. But I was reading, I think that the album itself went as high as like 119 or something like that on the charts, which I mean, it actually landed on the Billboard charts, which is kind of amazing for a Black Sabbath album to do.
Yeah, I mean, just da-na-na, comes in, you're like, oh my God, it's Tony Iommi magic.
Yeah. And I remember like back in the day when they had Headbangers Ball, they'd always play like some of these Sabbath videos that were around at the time with Tony Martin. And it's kind of hey, Black Sabbath on MTV. But I was reading the other day on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen this. MTV's been around. They say MTV's been around because it's still on there for 38 years, but they actually it was only 14 years of music videos, if you can imagine that. They've turned reality now. It's nothing but reality. Doesn't even.
I remember the first day that it came on, man. I remember watching it on day one.
Yeah. But it's just amazing, and Black Sabbath is still in one form or another together. Just it's more of a business than anything. And I'd heard a number of years ago Tony Iommi rather was thinking about putting together how they had the Dio years. He wanted to put together a Tony like a Tony Martin box set. I think that'd be a cool thing for fans because, like I said, a lot of that stuff's not available or it's hard to find. But I don't know that financially there'd be a reason for them to do it. Sadly.
Well, I mean, they're not. No one's touring, so you might as well put something out. Shit.
I mean, that'd be the perfect time, I think, to to do something like that. Yeah. So it's kind of.
But if people that are listening to this that haven't listened to the Headless Cross album, and I also recommend Eternal Idol. Definitely go on YouTube or whatever the fuck you got to do and jam it.
Yeah, YouTube. That's why I was listening to a lot of this stuff the last couple of nights just to kind of refamiliarize myself with it. And it's interesting because when the Eternal Idol came out too, like I said, it was kind of they were having an identity crisis. They really didn't know who was in band. I mean, originally I heard they were going to get Ray Gillen that was in that band with Jake E. Lee Badlands. He was briefly in Sabbath, and I think there's even a song I was reading on this album that was written by Ray Gillen, and Glenn Hughes was eventually, I guess, he went on tour, but he was heavily addicted to drugs, and then he eventually got kicked out, and ultimately they got Tony Martin, who'd kind of been Tony Iommi's kind of right-hand man through the 80s.
I go back and forth with him sometimes on Facebook, so it's cool, but I've never met him in person. But, it seems like a really cool dude, and I heard a lot of some of his solo stuff that hadn't been even released, which actually sounded really cool. So, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and it's kind of your story with Black Sabbath's kind of like I became a fan of David Coverdale, the singer from Whitesnake, when that 1987 Whitesnake album came out. And then kind of from becoming a Whitesnake fan, I found out, oh wait, this is also the guy that replaced Ian Gillan on Deep Purple back in 1973. And I'd heard that stuff he had done like with Deep Purple, like Burn, which is one of my all-time favorite Deep Purple albums, but I had no idea that, that's the guy from Whitesnake that was actually, he was in Deep Purple before there was ever a Whitesnake band.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's kind of crazy. And now, Sean, I wanted to ask you also while we got you on the line, over the last week, you put up, you kind of shocked a lot of fans. You put up this great little video of, you did a remake of Betty Murphy's song, Party All the Time. And what I loved about it is, number one, it was totally unexpected. I mean, you being the mental guy you are, people would really not ever expect you to do anything like. So there's a bit of a comedy factor to what you were doing. It was all done in fun and games. I love the video you did with it. So, first of all, talk about the decision to do that and kind of because the other thing I loved about it is kind of it showed your versatility as a vocalist. It shows you can do more than just metal.
I don't know if I was like started to listen to that song while I was doing some stuff, and then I posted it. Maybe I just shared it from someone else. I think someone else posted it, then I shared it, and I started listening to it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I remember, always liked the song. And then, someone's like, you should do a cover of it. And then I just went on YouTube, and they're like, Party All the Time instrumental. And it was right there on YouTube, the instrumental. I'm like, oh, well, that makes it really fucking easy. I can just lay that in. So I laid it in, and I just started singing it, and I was just trying to totally copy exactly, doing the Rick James voice and shit. And the instrumental version was a little different than
The original version. Yeah.
The original, so I had to like make some modifications, but it came out good. And I threw it over to Dave Garcia, and he like threw it together. And then I was gonna do a video of me like I was gonna put on like a real disco shirt.
Oh wow!
And then sing it like lip sync it into the microphone, and then like that's too much work. So we just put together a slideshow with a bunch of fun pictures real quick.
Wow.
And yeah, it was cool. There's a few songs like that I wouldn't mind doing. I was like Olivia Newton-John, like, yeah, I believe we are magic.
Oh wow!
Nothing can stand in our way. Like that's got a really metal chorus. I'm like,
that's initially what I was thinking when I first seen it. I thought, it'd be cool for him to do like a couple kind of these little oddball songs that people really wouldn't expect him to do, but he could do. Because especially with all this lockdown stuff and not being able to tour, it's just kind of a fun little thing for you and the fans, I think, to kind of check out. But what are your thoughts on that?
I've been working. I mean, there should be an article that says Sean Peck says he's recorded more music than any other musician in the world during the lockdown. 'Cause I think I've written and recorded.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm getting close to like 40 songs.
Wow.
I mean, the fourth Death Dealer album is done. All my singing's done on the fourth Death Dealer album.
Yeah, I seen that.
The Death Dealer album doesn't even come out until November.
Wow.
And the fourth one's already done. We're probably like 4 songs into the fifth one.
Wow.
The Three Tremors album is almost done, and we probably have 5 or 6 songs for the new Cage album. I've got another like secret new band that I'm working on.
Wow.
I've got material for that, and then I got a couple other like one-offs. I'm doing this one rap kind of POD like rap metal song.
Well, I can't wait to hear that. Wow.
That is good to freak people out. I don't even know if if I can put that out under my name. I'm gonna put that out under an alias.
Wow.
But, so I've been just cataloging a ton of material, and it's killer too. It's not just a bunch of crap. It's like I'm in a really good creative zone right now where it's just like every day I'm doing stuff.
And now, I'd seen the news about the Death Dealer album. It's supposed to be coming out, I guess, later in the fall. And then you also said you guys have a new bass player. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Mike LaPond has joined the band. We had Mike Davis, who was the bass player for Halford, and Lizzie Borden, and he's got a bunch of stuff going on. He's in Dramarama, the '90s band. They had a hit, so they do stuff, and then he's got a business that's doing really good. So he wasn't going to be able to hang with what our future plans were. So Mike LaPond, who already plays with Ross the Boss, so Ross the Boss stole the Death Dealer drummer, Steve Macy. Wow. So we're stealing the Ross the Boss bass player. So it's a big
happy family.
Yeah. So and he's just people that know Mike LaPond's probably one of the greatest bass players on earth right now. And the cool thing is he's totally into the music. I mean, he's like not just doing it, as a paycheck. He's like, oh, dude, he digs the tunes, and so that helps. There's a lot of enthusiasm there, and we're looking forward to getting out and playing some of the stuff live. Because live, the second album, we really didn't play a lot of the second album live. We only played like 2 or 3 songs, and so there's like a ton of killer stuff off that album, and now we got this third album. So picking what our set list is going to be tough, because there's a lot of really killer tracks.
And so let me ask you, like, when you must have a ton of material that songs that are just laying around that you've written and don't really have anything home for it just yet. How when you write stuff, how do you know if it's like going to be a Cage song or Death Dealer song? Do you just kind of wait till you start writing for that?
Yeah, I mean, and then I got a bunch of these. I'm going to mention that last. I've got a bunch of songs. Like I don't really have any interest in doing a solo album.
Yeah.
But I've got all these like hard rock, love, sex songs that like none of my bands want to do, and they're like really good. Like I can put these songs out somehow.
Yeah.
So I have a whole folder of like really cool,
unreleased stuff. Yeah.
Kind of like hard rock sexual innuendo songs.
Wow.
And I'm trying to, I'm arguing with like the Death Dealer guys and the Cage guys, the Three Tremors guys, going, look, like half of every Judas Priest song was a love song. Every Dokken song was a love song. Every Rat song was a love song. Every Van Halen song was a love song. It's okay to have a couple, chick songs in here. Like we grew up on the shit. When you really think about it, start counting them down. So, but they just want more, death and killing and conspiracies, and but that's okay. I love that shit too. But I got a lot of really good tracks I'm going to have to compile one day. But as far as what, I kind of have an idea. Sometimes I'll just be writing, like, I'm writing this song for this band. I just kind of, like the secret project that I'm
working on
is, definitely has its own kind of topical vibe. So I'm like, okay, so these are all going to go in this folder. And then, Death Dealer and Cage, I think are, very similar. Either vocal, can work for either one. But I just what I need, like, okay, I need Cage songs now. So we're gonna start writing for Cage. Like I just did. We have tons of material, but we wanted a couple more fast ones for the new Three Tremors album.
Okay.
And so we put together, I went and gotten with Casey, and we put together like 3 just in one session. I just tracked one. Yesterday, like, this is for the Tremors, and it was fucking awesome. I sang that last night.
Yeah, and
I go in with the intent, like, I need a song for Cage, writing a Cage song right now. Sit down, do it.
Because for years that's the thing. You were known as the guy from Cage, like Ronnie Dio said, and hey Cage, but it must be fun to have all these other vehicles and outlets to kind of do your thing, because you've got so many of these great projects that I've kind of lost track of all of them. I got to sit down and think, okay, there's Cage, Death Dealer, Three Tremors, but it's a great thing to have all these things to look forward to from Sean Peck,
Yeah, Death Dealer, had a real, we had a hiatus because we were all doing shit, but, writing with Ross the Boss and writing with Stu Marshall, I mean, Stu and I, you became just an incredible writing team, man. We're just like the stuff, just like how Dave Garcia from Cage, how Casey and I get together, and you just when you mesh with somebody and like you just come up with killer shit, it just makes it fun to create. And just like how I was kind of with Hank Sherman from Denner Sherman, I mean, we were. Right. It's a shame that we're not going to do that anymore, because him and I were just a freaking great writing team, that we're really able to capture that old Merciful Fate vibe, like all the fans did. But I don't know, maybe he'll come to his senses one day.
Yeah, and they're re-releasing a lot of the classic Merciful Fate stuff on Metal Blade along with the King Diamond album. That's something you should check out if you get a chance.
I mean, I made a video of my action figure fighting the King Diamond action figure, making fun of it.
Wow, yeah.
Because to me it's so stupid. It's like, let's just he hasn't done a new album in 13 years. Like, let's just re-release everything. I mean, everybody already has that shit. It's just like, I don't get the point.
Well, I think it might have to do with some of his health issues. Like, I heard he had a heart attack or some number of years ago, so I don't know.
Well, he's over that. I mean, he's been out touring and stuff, so it's just... It's a creativity issue.
Maybe so. Yeah, and just I guess living off of the nostalgia stuff, but that's kind of a shame. Now I know a lot of the Cage stuff. That's what I think's cool about Death Dealer and these other bands, because a lot of the Cage stuff you were sharing with me earlier when I interviewed you in the past, that a lot of it's based on like storylines. I write stories and it's like a concept, whereas Death Dealer, I guess, is more just straight ahead metal. So that's got to be cool to kind of be able to have these different writing styles when you write a song.
Yeah, I mean, we did 2 concept albums with Cage, and I don't think this next one's going to be a concept.
More straight ahead.
But, we've, in the Death Dealer, there are a lot of stories that I write as single songs. But it's fun to have the different outlets, and people can look forward to a lot of, probably going to have 4, the Death Dealer comes out this year, probably going to have 4 albums come out next year, so save your money. I was just laughing at, the Merciful Fate came out with that article that said, oh, we've written 6 songs in the last 18 months. I'm like, I wrote 6 songs last week.
Wow, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, and Sean, I learned something new about you today I never was aware of. I didn't know you were originally from Alaska. I was curious, knowing that now. How old were you when you came out, like, to San Diego or California here when you left Alaska?
I was born in San Diego, but I moved up there in second grade.
Oh, wow.
I went like second grade through high school up there, which was just great. It was amazing. Like growing up there was killer.
Yeah.
And then I came back down to San Diego. So.
Okay.
But I kind of, pretty much grew up in Alaska.
Oh, that's amazing. And you're living out your metal dreams here in California. And I seen on your Facebook page you kind of posted the Black Sabbath song Mob Rules recently, and I guess that had to do with what's going on with the world politically. What do you think of all this kind of violence and riots out in the street?
I try to stay away from political topics.
I hear you.
It's just gonna
make more trouble.
Dissect your fan base, but I'm not a fan of people rioting and burning down the towns and looting stores. Like I don't know who's a fan of that. I mean, I'm all for rebellion and everything, but
just so nobody gets.
It's got to be for the right reason. I mean, we're in the freest country in the world, and if you took some of those plights to if you're living in
Uganda or somewhere,
something like that. They got to put things in perspective. But it's just crazy. I just want to get back to the American way of life, shall we say?
The final thing I'll say on that is it's very sad that, like, as a performer, that's got to be on your mind. Like, okay, I've got all this great music that's coming out, but are we going to be able to perform it live, or what's going to go on with that?
I'm sure eventually, everything will get back to normal. I mean, we might have to wait.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can't stay locked in a bubble for the next 5 years. I mean, eventually society's just going to have to go out and just,
risk it. Yeah.
You're going to have to take your chances and do what you can to hopefully not catch it, and because there may never be a vaccine. Remember, we have a flu vaccine, and still 60,000 people died from it. So
I mean, oddly enough, I remember a few years ago getting a flu shot, and I just got sick as hell. I'm like, I thought this was supposed to help you not get sick, but okay. But
I don't ever get the flu shot. I don't know if that's right. I'm not advocating.
I hear you. That's your experience, rather. And then, I will say this. I think it's cool that some of these new ways people are performing. Like, I seen this thing on Facebook the other day where Jack White did this little live performance with Terry Lewis, who was also the other singer in Great White, and they did this kind of acoustic performance on the Monsters of Rock studios in Hollywood. And it was a different way of doing it, but it was kind of cool. People got to check it out. You watch online. It's free. You can kind of comment what your thoughts as they're performing. It's just kind of a new way of doing it. There wasn't an audience, but it was kind of a unique way to watch a concert, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I just watched the Dream Evil one. It's just like sounded great, but it's just so unprofessional in between the songs. It's just like no one knows what to say, and it brings everything back to just so an amateur, even though they sound amazing and they're seasoned musicians, and then when they just start talking and taking a drink of their water in between the songs, it reverts back to like watching a freaking garage band. So I don't know.
I think part of that is
too excited about it.
I think part of that is not being a live audience, because even when you watch stuff on TV, you're used to seeing a crowd or hearing the roar of a crowd, but there's really none of that.
I would definitely have my ducks in a row. We've been offered to do one, like a professional one, where it's all edited and lights and everything, which I might do, but there's not going to be any like, hey, are you tuning your, just like the talking in between just makes it look like a freaking amateur hour, and I'm not down with that. I want to still be seen as like a spectacle.
Well, that's cool. That's cool to see that you're one of those guys that you're a real professional. As you say, like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it the right way. There's going to be none of this other stuff.
I'm not streaming an iPhone freaking on Facebook Live. It's stupid.
Okay, Sean. Well, I'd like to thank you for doing this today. It's been great catching up with you, and maybe when the Death Dealer album's ready to come out, we'll be talking to you again. So good luck with all your projects, and I'll be talking to you later. Okay.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Okay. Bye bye.
All right, bro.